Not My Family is a highly fictionalized, loosely autobiographical narrative that describes generational bad will, poor choices, financial malfeasance, and even murder. The generational craziness is propagated like a tidal wave, threatening to drown everything in the deluge. Secrets are buried deep in lies, pacts sealed in blood, the truth concealed unto death, just to exert some control. Personally, I hate rubberneckers. It's kind of like, or this book is kind of like rubbernecking. The 30-mile pileup or 30-car pileup on I-75. You want to look away, but you're drawn to the carnage. Join me as the protagonist progresses along self-discovery, and she recreates her identity, and she discovers how to go home again. Not My Family can be purchased at FeliciaBaxter.com or directly from the author. Just navigate to Facebook, look up Dale's Angels Inc., and click Buy Now for your autographed copy. Now, let's return to the podcast.
God of glory, Lord of love, hearts unfold like flowers before thee, healthy as the sun above. Now the clouds of sin and sadness drive our dark down away. Giver of immortal hands, fill us with the light. Fill us with the light. Oh, fill us with the light of day.
Welcome to another episode of TNFro is Reading. I'm your host, Felicia Baxter. Join me today as I discuss Black excellence. We do a podcast reboot if there's anything interesting in them. Some invites to the barbecue, my take on the 2020 Democratic lineup, the disinvites to the barbecue and who I'm giving a side eye to, and they just need to have shade thrown at them on every single angle. Me continuing to dream about chatter books and readings from my own stuff. My daily affirmations. And then the show is to conclude. And just think, I still don't have any sponsors. And I could add things and delete things at my own whim because this is my show. But thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy what I have to say this week. This is TNFro, aka Felicia Baxter, a relative newbie to the podcasting game. In an attempt to continue to live my best life, it seems as if I always have some type of hustle going on. Traveling Vineyard, India Hicks, writing my book, which is titled Not My Family, dropped last week. All of this comes at a cost. It's not free. It takes effort to create a buzz and to create content. I just need one person to start the stampede to my site, one person or company to become a patron, one person to buy my book and proclaim it to be the best thing since sliced bread. So please navigate to http://patron.podbean.com/the talking fro to donate to my podcast, and also navigate to www.feliciabaxter.com to purchase my book. In advance, if we don't speak, thanks for your support. Well, welcome back to the podcast. This week in Black Excellence, I wanted to give a big ups to Coco Gauff. She is just an amazing and young black tennis player that gave Venus Williams a run for her money at last year's American Open, and who is making waves this year on the circuit. I can't say enough good things about this phenomenal athlete. I also wanted to give final homage to the great Missy Elliott, who had probably one of the best shows in the best sets in the VMAs. Her thanks were just so wild and so long. She actually gave major shout out to the Stars of the Read podcast. That figures heavily in my next section or part of the segment. But her show was just as amazing and fresh as it was as all the songs that are almost 20 years old, but they still are so relevant. And her ideas and her zeal and her energy was just as fresh as it was when she first came out of the sea, kicking down the doors of IC Norcom in Portsmouth, Virginia, and to where she is now. I found it just so wonderful, and it was great to watch. I also wanted to have this part, or dedicate a part of this segment, to a little kid. No, she's not African American or of African descent, but this Greta Thunberg is going to make waves, and if other young people can be as dedicated to her with the climate and anything worth standing up for and wanting to affect a change, it's going to be this kid from Denmark or from Holland. She basically sailed with her team a zero carbon emissions boat across the Atlantic Ocean to show up for a climate change rally in the United States. A combination of wind and solar power. It was absolutely amazing, and I think we're going to continue to hear great things about her. Oh, and last but not least, Lizzo is another great performer that I saw in the VMAs, and her big inflated butt. That was hysterical. And her dancers, although they were curvaceous like myself, they actually made such a great impact. And you can be proud and happy where you are and get it going. And it was just an amazing set. Her, Missy Elliott, that whole section was pretty amazing. And that is a great lead into my podcast reboot, because of the majority of podcasts that I actually was able to listen to. Everyone was basically talking about the VMAs. um, this year, and how it was time for better late than never that Missy Elliott got the Michael Jackson Vanguard Award finally after 20 years. And then they're talking about in maybe another 5 years, Busta Rhymes getting it. But he has absolutely been openly homophobic, I guess. I don't know. That kind of negates him from the all-inclusiveness of that particular type of award. I bet Taylor Swift would get it before he does. Oh, and that was the other thing. They call her Tay Tay. Everybody was talking about how she doesn't stand for a whole bunch, or she's been kind of silent on some issues, but her song Calm Down was not only written by a member of the LGBTQT whatever community, all the alphabet community, and how she actually won an award for that particular song. And I actually, in all honesty, that's her opening, and that set was absolutely amazing. I don't care what you say about Tay Tay. I like her. That was actually a pretty good set. And I know I'll probably be voted off the island, and I shouldn't like her, but I actually do. I know what I like, and that was actually a really good set. And they also continue to cultivate a spirit of mental health. Talk to someone if you have some issues. Don't hide, and be more considerate of those that actually have mental health issues, and don't be so derisive. So what is going on with the outlook of the 2020 Democratic nominations? JoJo, he just keeps talking out of his ass. I don't understand. He keeps overinflating and misspeaking, and it's so aggravating. He's going to talk himself right out of the nomination himself. I think he just needs to sit down, don't go off script, and stick to what his script writers have told him to say. He can't speak off the cuff like his previous boss. That is not his strong suit. Christy Gillibrand has dropped out of the race, and I don't know. I don't think she ever got traction with gun control and women's rights. And she just did not get the financial support, and she didn't do very well in the polls as everyone thought that she could have done. So she dropped out also last week. And who I would like to disinvite, or who I've been giving a side eye to, Tevin Biles Thompson. Yes, of my last week's Black Excellence, who I gave it to his sister Simone Biles in her gravity-defying gymnastic routines. Sometimes your family should be always there to support, but they can also do some dumbass shit that can actually pull you down. And his getting not accused, but actually charged with triple homicide stemming from some party back in the beginning of the year. He's actually, I don't know if Ohio has the death penalty, but he's looking at some major time. And she won't talk about it because she can't control her brother. They're two completely different people, and she's not the police. And he has obviously no self-control. So there you go. Kevin Burns. Oh, what did I write his name down for? Oh, Jesus wept. This is the CEO of Juul, probably trying to convince the FDA that, number one, they didn't market the Juul electronic cigarette to young people. Yeah, you made it look cool, and you gave it bubblegum scented, and there was no age limit on it, and you made it also look like technology. It looked like a jump drive, and you said you didn't market it to young people. Yeah, really. And there are other alternatives to get people to stop smoking. I don't think Juul is going to be one of those things. Just like they the tobacco company back in the early part of the 20th century was saying tried to tote the health benefits of smoking when it was glaringly obvious the addictive nature of nicotine and the association with lung cancer. Um, yeah, good luck with that, bro, and you need to stop lying. Boris Johnson with his old goofy crazy hair. This is the current PM of England and his quest to force through Brexit. I don't understand completely the complexities of why Great Britain wants to leave the Union or the European Union. That is a step backwards in so many different ways, politically, financially. I don't think they can go make a run of it and stand alone in this economic climate when you got the bullies of the East of between Russia and China and all of those crazy Saudi Arabian countries with their oil. I don't think that they need to go at it alone. But in the next couple of weeks, I plan on doing the meaning of Brexit, why they're such in a hurry to leave the European Union, and how this is detrimental. And I think having also, I'm just mad at him for pulling in the Queen on her vacay to suspend Parliament so he can get what he wants, when it is obvious that the reason why they're stalling is because it's a bad idea on so many fronts. But this is just me, an outsider, and I don't have a dog in that race, so I guess they would tell me, go, you yank, go sit down and sit down somewhere. But anyways, now we're just going to take a pause for a slight break, and we'll be back at it in just a moment. I love to read, obviously, therefore the TNFro is reading podcast. But for those hard to find titles, navigate to alibris.com. Alibris.com is chock full of hundreds of thousands of titles at a reasonable cost. So navigate to alibris.com/TNFro for those special deals. Plus, you can also navigate to dalesangelsinc.com and check out updated daily deals at your pleasure. Now back to the podcast. This is rapidly becoming a favorite, probably on par with my Tennessee Medical Minute. Welcome back to this part of the segment, Chatterbooks and Wineberry. This is my hopes of the freestanding and indie bookstore / wine store that I want to one day open in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But in this part of the show, I want to just highlight a couple of things. I discovered Reddit this week. I actually was paid to write a post through my Fivver through the Fivver platform, and I wanted to summarize the book, or just highlight some of the outstanding parts of the book that I'm reading this week, The Yellow House by Sarah Broom. First, my Fivver gig. I joined Fivver a couple of weeks ago, and I've decided that I have a 4,800 campaign that I'm trying to do with that, meaning I want to be paid $4,800 with all my hustles and my postings for that platform. It's possible. I've had 3 jobs now, and I'm hopeful to get more. And I don't consider it a grind because the subjects that I'm allowed to write about have been right on time, and some things that I guess I've been thinking about in the past. So this past week, I was actually tapped to write for the Motherland Online And I was just given writing about African pride in professional wear, and I wanted to just read you that in its entirety. And here we go. Before you waste an entire year's salary on that midnight black Armani suit and Gucci loafers, or those Louboutin heels and Diane von Furstenberg wrap dresses for the overhyped and ever-changing world of the business professional, we need a bit of education on what business dress is and why returning to our traditional African roots of dressing is consistent with the norms of the business formal and casual, even in the Western world, and still reflect our Afrocentric belief system and can be worn with pride and dignity. Knowledge is power to build and to uplift. Dress codes have been in existence in the professional world ever since the dawn of modern times. In the most recent past, business formal has prevailed with men in neutral colored suits and leather dress shoes, and women in modest length dresses or skirts, button-up collars, tights, and conservative accessories and heels. The advent of business casual is a newer phenomenon brought on by Apple and to a lesser extent Google, with its straight-up casual wear, you could say, which allows for comfort and not as formal as the business formal, but still excludes jeans and tennis shoes. Most companies have these dress codes, usually in central location on the company's intranet. Most pieces of traditional clothing, from a kaftan to a more traditional Ethiopian suit, can be worn with pride and still conform to the dress codes of a Western company. Amazing, you can conform and still be free to express with pride your roots. Who knew? As we move further into a post-colonial reality, our Afrocentric awareness continues to evolve. These beliefs have come to reflect traditional African values. It is a political and cultural and ideological movement that strives to preserve African identity. This self-awareness has been hampered by European colonialism, in which we were regarded and regarded ourselves as inferior. But as we gain an enlightened view of ourselves as beautiful and uniquely African-derived people, it should become a way for us to raise the self-respect for everyone of African descent throughout the world. It is imperative that you understand what traditional African clothes are, or their meaning. If your beginnings are privilege, meaning middle class upbringing, large home, late model cars and driveway, your Western dress is reflected in that and was expected. But for those of us from more modest and humble backgrounds, we had to project where we wanted to go and careful not to reflect where we came from. This duality to our existence prevailed in school and in our professional setting. It seems we are always on stage playing the role of our lives. It doesn't matter what shotgun house on cement blocks or that Section 8 government housing on the wrong side of the railroad tracks you ran from. You bury that under layers and layers of poise and the latest gear. Your clothes and your carriage should reflect who you want it to be or who you were becoming in most respects. This is what Afrocentric dress reflects. Pride is who we are, where we came from, and where we're going. This pride is reflected in every aspect of traditional African garb. Afrocentric clothes reflect comfort and are fashionable with meaning associated with the colors. The materials in the traditional African garb reflect the varied tribes and people of the continent, and is more than the widely known kente cloth of the Ashanti people of West Africa in this country. There is the adiri, which is the tie-dye, the aso-oki fabric of the Yoruba people, bark cloth made by the Bugande tribe. There is Kitenge made in Kenya and other East African countries, and there is mud cloth made by the Bambara tribe. The color of the clothes also tells the story of the person's trajectory in life. When you think about it, for example, gold reflects wealth and fertility, red reflects tension, the spiritual and political world because of the color of blood. Blue represents love and peace, and it symbolizes the sky and is a harmonious color. Green represents prosperity and life and is also the color used for medicinal treatment. There is spirituality and an overall importance of African clothing pieces reflected in the color of the clothing. The abacus, which came out of Mobutu Sese Seko of Kenya rejection of Western dress, has come to symbolize tradition and cultural authenticity, whether you support his regime or not. But the abacus, matched with the traditional kanzu, a white robe traditionally worn by men, makes quite a statement for a man who knows who he is. I think a beautifully tied headscarf or a Nigerian gilet to match with the kiondo, a traditional purse with two handles by Coach, or the Madiba shirt popularized by Nelson Mandela in the 90s with prints updated to reflect us today, all have a place in a professional world. This self-awareness and pride in our culture will be reflected in our poise and with the clothes tailored to fit our bodies. It will also reflect the richness and diversity of all the cultures that make us who we are. I wrote this in probably less than an hour, and you can always tell when I'm actually feeling the subject because it seems like the words just pour forth from me, and I hope it is, organized in a way that's understandable. And also, along these lines, I do a fair bit of blogging, and this actual podcast is actually posted within my WordPress blog, but I've stumbled upon Reddit, and I had no idea what it was. Evidently, Reddit was born from two UVA students and then subsequently sold to Condé Nast back in 2006. When it went public, I believe in 2014 to 2017, Snoop Dogg actually made it possible when they raised the initial round of funding. When it then went public, it was then valued at $1.8 billion, and now is worth over $3 billion. It's actually a social news site by the lay public, which they post stories. And people vote up or post down, kind of like the likes and, etc. that you do on Facebook and Instagram. But it's a little bit more because you can actually get awards or give awards. And it's supposedly one of the 5th most visited sites in the world. I think it was cool that you can give coins and support others. And sometimes I think this is a way to also get sponsorships, etc. So I'm going to kind of see what's actually trending going forward. I'm going to see what's trending and write about those subjects online and make comments and see how I can also expand my own reading audience as I write my own next chapter. And now for the last part of this, my read for this week, I've been pounding through The Yellow House by Sarah Broom that just dropped a couple of weeks ago. The book itself is very familiar to me because it's about, this author was actually born and raised in New Orleans. She and her family were displaced during Katrina and how she went back twice. She ran away from the confines of her family only to find that her place and her grounding was within the family. But it seems like she's having to set up boundaries, which I think is pretty apropos for everything that I've gone through and ran from. I'm still not only reading that, but I'm also still reading Unlearn by Humble the Poet. But I'm finding that both books are teaching me that your start can be a little bit sketch and it can affect your journey ultimately, but you choose your own path and you're responsible for your own success. And failure is an option. You just have to choose to learn from what happened and to keep going. There's a part of the book that I found fascinating. This is when she says, I knew what would happen if you made friends, Lynette said. 35 years, she said this 35 years after the fact. So I stopped making them. It meant that people were going to want to come into your life, and they weren't going to come nowhere near that house. Not even if it took everything within me. Without knowing how it came to be, we left every person in our world who was not family outside, unable to cross the threshold to enter in and see the place where we lived, which was still my mother's pride and joy, even though it was falling apart at the seam. The house was my beginning. It was the only house I ever knew. The kind of people that we were made it worse, says Lynette. Because of the way Mama made us look, people began to have expectations. It's better to look homely if you live in a house like that. The yellow house was a source of pride and mostly meant love and security, and it didn't truly reflect who they all were, even who the mother was or who they were to become. It was a beginning needed for a time. It weathered many storms except for Katrina. It was a monument to success in spite of all the storms. Beauty is an inside-out thing, and it seems that Sarah Broom's grandmother knew that. And one of her brothers said this in a tribute of their grandmother at her death. Grandma was a beauty combined with elegance inside and out of your home. The way you dress, your posture, every detail of the way you treat other people, the way you see the world. Her jewelry box, tons of hat boxes that wore, huge bed with the white headboard, box for face powder, someone you would admire and wanted to be like. And it was also that during this time when she was trying to find herself, but she had already knew who she was if she had only taken the time to go back to New Orleans. She would go as far away as the neighboring country of Burundi, which is next to Rwanda, the better known Rwanda. And she talked about how books actually saved her life, and when a shipment of books was misdirected, when they finally arrived, she got ecstatic as a best friend had come to visit, and she would only have one of her other friend to come visit her when she was in Burundi. But with all of that said, it still beguiles me that this house meant so much to this mother, and why, it would take her 7 years to even get its undervalued worth from the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana after Katrina, which I find appalling, because Katrina was in 2005, and that means she didn't get paid to 2012. She would suffer through the administration of Ray Nagin, an inept but charismatic mayor, and through all of that, she would find herself become a great journalist, and then write this book that is actually allowing people to unpack the difficulties and the convolutedness of their background and figure out how they're going to proceed forward in the here and now. And again, it's all about not wasting time and just getting on with things. That she described the destruction of her yellow house, how it basically had split almost down to the middle, how they lived with rats, and how the inside became the outside. But what it could have and it also became to symbolize the disarray of the supportive services in New Orleans, but it also was a representative of just the strength of her mother, because who at 19 bought the home, and how she was able to raise 12 children to adulthood from that humble beginnings. I find it all fascinating, and it was just, and the overall meaning of the book is just hope and hopeful. It's a kind of a heavy read for the summer, but at the same time, the overall theme of the book that you can't break away from is just the hope that jumps out and screams from each pages. In spite of everything and all of those trials, hope is what is the bottom line. And you just got to keep hoping. You got to keep reading. And me, I just got to keep writing. Well, welcome back to the show, and time is slowly winding down. I'm going to leave you with these few affirmations for this week, and I have been feeling this in my soul and trying to get back to intentional success and not bad mouthing the success for any of my endeavors. It's baby steps as we progress to what we want and what we will need. And it's more than just a thumbs up and a like. It's actually people supporting financially what you actually do. But in the meantime, I will make the most of my life, and I will write great things with my Mont Blanc. I am grateful for the power of my mind, and I will let it find solutions needed to create positive change. Well, that's it for me. Join me next time as I regale you with what I'm reading for the week. I plan on wrapping up The Yellow House and moving more towards Rainier Maria Rilke's Letters to a Young Poet. I believe I'm up to the 6th letter on that. And also, I plan on recording, hopefully, by the end of this evening and posting or publishing my TNFro Medical Minute. I'm probably going to only post that every other week because that's just a lot, for people to want to hear me chat. And I want to thank you all for listening, and I hope you have found something positive in the words of this podcast. And also, don't forget to navigate to DalesAngelsInc.com to find deals of the day from Gaiam, SodaStream, and my favorite, Alibris, which you can get pay very nominal amounts for some great books. That's where I just got my first purchase of through Letters of a Young Poet. Also, don't hesitate to drop me a line at TNFroisreading@gmail.com, or you can leave a two-minute message on my Google or my voice over internet phone at 423-463-0658. That is 423-463-0658. And also in the final words by Humble the Poet, it's never too late to start building the life that you want. The recipe for success is very simple. Act, learn, build, and repeat. Have a great evening, everyone, and keep reading.